When Bharat hosts the G20 Summit in Delhi this weekend, the red carpet will be rolled out for celebrated world leaders in shiny suits. While the mainstream media will welcome them, we have a simple question for you. Do these global leaders deserve the hospitality given the track record of the countries they represent? Let's critically look at who they really work for. Thank you for tuning in. This is Ratna. You are watching Empire Diaries. This weekend, the rock stars of international politics will be here, wining and dining in the loveliest places of Delhi. Cameras will chase them and flash constantly. Security forces will protect them from all sides. TV headlines will give a ball-by-ball commentary of their moves. Only the elite class of Bharat will get to brush shoulders with the guests. The high-profile visitors will make intellectual faces and discuss ways to save the planet. The G20 Summit will be one hell of a party. The 2 days of talks will deliver net zero results for the world's poorest people. But it doesn't matter because the show will be dazzling. Well, the Indian civilization is thousands of years old. It is way older than some of the civilizations the visiting politicians will represent. Let's set aside the euphoria and critically look at the credentials of the high-profile guests. Let's start with Joe Biden, the US president. America is by long way the single biggest military bully in the world today. The Pentagon has over 750 military bases in more than 80 countries. It has illegally intervened in dozens of countries that don't follow its orders. It has brutalized Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Let us not even talk about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As a notorious interventionist, America meddles in Bharat's internal affairs too. It happily uses the World Bank and the IMF to influence how this country is run. Worst of them all, several thousand US companies are currently minting money in Bharat and transferring the country's financial wealth to Wall Street banks. Joe Biden is a proud president of the American war machine. He is the president of the country with the biggest racism problem. He is the president of the country that carried out nuclear terror attacks on Japan. Under Biden's watch, American defense companies are trying to dump their costly products in Bharat. Does a US representative deserve a red carpet welcome in Delhi? Should we allow him to lecture us on freedom and friendship? Let's move on to China, Bharat's biggest neighbor. We have the same question regarding Chinese Premier Li Qiang, who will land here happy and smiling. During the last 30 years, a few thousand Chinese manufacturers have silently captured the textile sector and electronics industry and household goods market in Bharat. Thanks to the gigantic dumping of Chinese goods, Bharat's domestic economy has been decimated. Our trade deficit with China now stands at a pathetic $47 billion. There is another area in which Beijing makes New Delhi bleed expenses. Although politically convenient for both sides, Bharat-China border tensions deeply impact the Indian economy. So why should we greet a representative from this government with open arms? Does China deserve it? Let's now move on to another superstar guest at the G20 party, Rishi Sunak, the ever-smiling British PM. Britain's illegitimate looting of the Indian economy during the past is history's most well-known crime. The British government has never shown the slightest tendency to make up for that monumental crime, no remorse even. The famines that the British once gave us were much worse than even the Holocaust, but the UK has never been punished for those crimes. Instead, Britain misuses Bharat as a treasure of talent. It has a perpetual policy of attracting lakhs of Indian brains to relocate and work for British companies. And then, of course, there are hundreds of British companies that are minting money in India and moving that money straight into the banks in London. Should Sunak, who represents a country with this dirty past, be given a warm welcome? What has he done to deserve it? Take French President Emmanuel Macron, one of the guests. He represents a government that bullies about a dozen African countries and treats them as undeclared economic colonies of Paris. French companies are among the 17,000 or more foreign businesses that are busy sucking money out of the Indian economy. Then there is Japanese PM Fumio Kishida. He recently hosted a G7 summit in Hiroshima, of all places. Over there, he shamelessly welcomed the President of America, the same America that devastated Hiroshima with a nuclear bomb. The list of guests with a dirty legacy continues. There is Justin Trudeau of Canada. The country has been in the spotlight in recent times for the discovery of mass dead bodies of indigenous children of Canadian charter schools. Canadian insiders from time to time carry out destabilizing activities in Punjab in order to give the Indian government sleepless nights. Should we smilingly welcome Trudeau? Then there are leaders and representatives from Russia, South Africa, Saudi Arabia and Australia. Russia is happily dragging a never-ending war in Ukraine. South Africa still practices racism, although unofficially. Saudi Arabia's treatment of Indian construction laborers is well known. And we all know how Australia's indigenous people have been sidelined and turned into a boutique showpiece. What right do the representatives of all these tented countries have to receive a warm welcome in Delhi? Many people argue that national leaders attending the G20 Summit are only representatives, that they are not the real culprits piloting their country's crimes. Well, in that case, why have they volunteered to represent countries with a dark history? Only because they want to enjoy the limelight and the media coverage? G20 is basically a group that is piloted by the G7 countries. We know that the G7 governments are controlled by giant corporations and conglomerates, and these giant businesses are run by families that we hardly know much about. So essentially, the G20 is an indirect representation of the real powers who control the world. That is precisely why we should not shower the visiting G20 leaders with flowers. Instead, we should ask them, as Bob Dylan asked in his song Blowing in the Wind, how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to press the bell icon so that we can notify you whenever we publish a report. Follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Send Get Updates to 9821045739 for news and views you are not told. Visit our website empirediaries.com for the latest news analysis. Stay informed, stay awake.